This must lead us to examine two major authors, Goldsmith and Sterne. Goldsmith being quite an interesting case because he somehow still belongs to the age of Pope and somehow at the same time belongs to the age of transition. On the one hand, indeed, sentiment still produced moral novels with even more conduct advice than Richardson had produced. Goldsmith is typical, as I said, especially with his novel The Vicar, of Wakefield. In it, you have an omniscient narrator directly appealing to the reader and drawing his or her attention to the virtues of the good-natured country clergyman, Dr. Primrose, and his family, who are facing countless troubles, including, of course, the abduction of a daughter by an evil squire. You see, this is again Richardson. Yet even Goldsmith, when writing for the stage, he wrote plays as well, tended to subvert this idyllic goodness, and The Vicar was probably a throwback to the past already. Definitely more original is Lawrence Sterne. Sentiment soon became synonymous with free-wheeling personal whim, in line with the philosophical views we have just examined. This is really the case with Lawrence Sterne. He was born into a military family, but he was a clergyman, and he started, like everyone else in the age of Pope, by writing satire. But soon he became much more original. His first novel, Tristram Shandy, or more exactly, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentlemen, subverts all narrative rules by free association of ideas. The hero starts his narrative even before birth, and a gallery of slightly deranged characters, his uncle Toby and his servant Corporal Trim, Dr. Slop, Parson Yorick, the outspoken chambermaid Susanna, soon become more important than the main supposedly hero Tristram Shandy. They impose their hobbies and bizarre conversations dealing with things ranging from garden reenactment of battles to things like obstetrics, and they take the story, if there is actually a story, in all sorts of directions. The book was called a comic novel, but probably it's all about the opinions of Tristram Shandy. Not political opinions, of course, but as I said, moral sentiments. In fact, whims. Even typographically, in terms of typography, the book is strange. Some sentences are left unfinished with dots. You have pages full black or full blank. Lots of little gimmicks like this. Yet the book was a roaring and Europe-wide success. Hence the installments published over 7 years. People kept asking for more. 2 centuries before the littérature de l'absurde, it was writing for its own sake. Dr. Johnson, of course, despised it. He said, "Nothing odd will do long." But Goethe read it avidly. In 1762, Sterne left for France and Italy in search of a cure for his tuberculosis. This provided the material for his real masterpiece, I would say, A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy, more often known simply as A Sentimental Journey. In it, you have a fictional Parson Yorick, the same taken up from Tristram Shandy, but in fact it's Sterne himself. Parson Yorick, yes, who travels from Calais to Paris, and each new stop, encounter, adventure, or sight forms the subject for an emotive little bubble in which the whole sensitive soul of the pre-romantic generation blossoms into view, leaving far behind the gimmicks, the comic quirks, and again, this was so in tune with the age that it was another European-wide success. I think we should take a look at an excerpt from The Sentimental Journey. It's really one of the key books of the age. You have him here, yes, maybe. So this is in the compendium of texts appended to your course brochure. It's the chapters about the starling. A starling is an étourneau, little bird. I'll read only the beginning, but you have an idea, a sample idea of how it works. It's really about the author allowing his mind to go free-wheeling. And as for the Bastille, well, the terror is in the word. Make the most of it you can, said I to myself. The Bastille is but another word for a tower, and a tower is but another word for a house you can't get out of. Mercy on the gouty, for they are in twice a year. But with 9 livres a day, and pen and ink and paper and patience, albeit a man can't get out, he may do very well within, or at least for a month or 6 weeks, at the end of which, if he is a harmless fellow, his innocence appears, and he comes out a better and wiser man than he went in. So you see, even the writing is like thought after thought after thought. Sterne is visiting the Bastille in Paris, and you get his reflections almost as speedily as they might, flash on his brain. So yeah, okay, oh yeah, the Bastille, oh yeah, that's frightening, but after all, if I was imprisoned in the Bastille, since I'm a writer and they gave me pen, ink and paper, maybe after all wouldn't be that bad. I had some occasion, I forget what, to step into the courtyard as I settled this account. And remember, I walked downstairs in no small triumph with a conceit of my reasoning. Beshrew the sombre pencil, said I vauntingly, for I envy not its powers, which paints the evils of life with so hard and deadly a colouring. The mind sits terrified, as the objects she has magnified herself and blackened, reduced them to their proper size and hue, and she overlooks them. So you see, the mind is turning on itself. He's already having thoughts about his thoughts and saying, oh, well, okay, my imagination is running wild and maybe I should not trust it. And I was interrupted in the heyday of this soliloquy with a voice which I took to be of a child, which complained it could not get out. I looked up and down the passage, and seeing neither man, woman, nor child, I went out without farther attention. In my return through the passage, I heard the same words repeated twice over, and looking up, I saw it was a starling, hung in a little cage. I can't get out, I can't get out, said the starling. I stood looking at the bird, and to every person who came through the passage, it ran fluttering to the side towards which they approached it, with the same lamentation of its captivity. I can't get out, said the starling. God help thee, said I, but I'll let thee out, cost what it will. So I turned about the cage to get to the door. It was twisted and double twisted so fast with wire. There was no getting it open without pulling the cage to pieces. I took both hands to it. The bird flew to the place where I was attempting his deliverance, and thrusting his head through the trellis, pressed his breast against it, as if impatient. I fear, poor creature, said I cannot set thee at liberty. No, said the starling. I can't get out, I can't get out, said the starling. I vow I never had my affections more tenderly awakened, nor do I remember any incident in my life where the dissipated spirits to which my reason had been a bubble were so suddenly called home. Mechanical as the notes were, yet so true in tune to nature were they chanted, that in one moment they overthrew all my systematic reasonings upon the Bastille, and I heavily walked upstairs, unsaying every word I had said in going down them. Wow, you see how it works? He is now mixing reality with dreams. He thinks he can hear the bird talk to him. The bird is a prisoner somehow, and though first he thought the Bastille was nothing, now he is made to realize how dreadful it is to be imprisoned, and he wants to free the bird, but he can't free the bird, and it goes on and on and on and on. And as you can see, The upshot of it is that reason, rationality, is no longer useful. What is more important is this direct appeal to the heart, to the feeling, this idea that the bird can actually talk and call on his deep seated feelings. This is pre Romanticism. Reason is cast aside. Reason is just about personal thought after thought after thought, probably going nowhere. The real sort of source of truth is feeling, sentiment, the heart, no longer the brain. So, definitely a fundamental book, really going to the core of the changes at work in this age of transition. Now we've dealt with the novels, we should turn to the stage and the revival of the Comedy of Manners. As mentioned before, less than 10 years after the publication of The Vicar of Wakefield, Goldsmith changed his tune. His great comedy classic, She Stoops to Conquer, is about the Hardcastle family, a primrose-like, quiet country establishment, rocked by the arrival of a brash stepson and his friend from town, Marlowe. Their daughter, Kate, will disguise as a barmaid, hence the stooping pun. You see, a stoop, c'est aussi un système pour verser de la bière. Je sais. She stoops to conquer. Elle s'abaisse pour vaincre. Mais aussi l'idée, elle sert de la bière pour vaincre. That's the stooping pun. So she disguises as a barmaid to conquer Marlowe. He prefers lower class girls, but is radiant in fact when she reveals that she is, after all, rich. The 5 acts seem to revert to the comedy of manners, and Kate really is far from a Pamela or Clarissa. Sentimentalism on the stage was then definitely buried by Irish wit, dueling beau, playwright, gambler, poet, politician, and theatre owner Richard Brinsley Sheridan, whose very long career extended into the next period, of which, together with Brummel, he was definitely an icon. Yet, as early as his first Drury Lane plays, The Rival, 1775, and his masterpiece, The School for Scandal, 1777, Sheridan subverted all the codes. The 2 plays were such hits that he made a fortune, and he went straight into politics, where he shone for a number of years before finally ending a self-ruined pauper. Apart from sheer comic force and memorable lines, as sharp as Oscar Wilde's in fact, the plays obviously answered a demand. After decades of keeping up appearances, the genteel Bath society aristocrats he lampooned somehow expected to be lampooned. They enjoyed the picture of their own incapacity to conform to the sentimental virtues that were supposed to be still governing Georgian social mores. In fact, there's something almost decadent about these plays. Well, you should definitely read The School for Scandal. It's an absolute masterpiece, and here in the supplement to the course brochure, I have provided 2 classic excerpts. The opening scene with Lady Sneerwell spending her time doing what she likes best, that is, destroying other people's reputation by spreading rumors. That's the notion in Scandal. Here she is, for instance, discussing her latest inventions with a character called the Juice, which later Sheridan renamed as Snake, and because he is a snake. And in all the later editions, this is the name you will find. It's really, really funny. They compare spreading rumors to an artistic capacity. Then there is the argument between Lady Teazle and Sir Peter Teazle, husband, and it's a classic of stickomythia. Very fast exchange of short, sharp lines, typically in an argument. Now, as you can see if you read it, but sadly we have no time to do that today, the revival of the comedy of manners was complete. Except for the coarse language, It was no longer about being moral. It was no longer about dividing the good and the bad, the villains and the nice victims. No, on the contrary, in those plays, the best lines, the most funny, the most attractive characters are really sometimes the nastiest ones. A definite return to a previous era. Again, probably answering a demand and signifying that things, the moral climate, was changing. And that is my main point in this lecture. We must now turn to the rise of Gothic literature. Another literary phenomenon revealing this perhaps decadent appetite for new thrills and a new moral landscape was the rise of so-called Gothic literature. As is well known, the adjective was first used by historians to describe with some condescension what they saw as the Goth-like roughness of medieval art and architecture, i.e. ignorant of classic principles. Regarding literature, the productions preceded the use of the adjectives, but by 1810 they were definitely, to quote the Oxford English Dictionary definition, a genre of fiction characterized by suspenseful, sensational plots involving supernatural or macabre elements, and often, especially in early use, having a medieval theme or setting. Well, that's a perfect definition. They were first called romances. You remember we had mentioned this word in lecture 3, because indeed they were connected to a poetic and medieval atmosphere. They emerged in the 1760s with Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto, 1764. The eccentric and super-rich son of Prime Minister Robert Walpole justified it by explicitly rejecting the realism of contemporary novels. Self-representation of Georgian society had become boring, and what is more, spiritually dry and barren. Can you really find satisfaction with the lives of moles and Pamelas, even colourful? If Christianity no longer fascinates you, since God has become Newton's cold and rational clockmaker of the universe, where can you turn? If moral social norms of moderation prevent violence and adventure, where can you get excitement? Escapism into something more than the ordinary was born, and it's still with us today. From 1749 onwards, Horace Walpole had a massive neo-Gothic castle built in Twickenham. It's called Strawberry Hill House. You have a photograph here. And he resolutely decided to live there a secluded life in his own private world. Sounds like Michael Jackson in Neverland. Almost. Next came William Beckford in his Vathek. It was first written and published in French. There was a French version in 1782. It's an imagined Oriental tale written in, yes, impeccable French. Again, something typical for another super-rich aristocrat with his own Fonthill estate to match Walpole's. It narrates the totally amoral adventures of a mad caliph and his even more deeply wicked mother. They try everything to please Iblis, the devil. And it's all in a world straight from the Arabian Nights. But perhaps the greatest Gothic novels were to come, with the works of Anne Radcliffe and Lewis, the absolute masterpiece, The Monk. So Anne Radcliffe, she was prim, she was a sort of shy middle-class woman, and she became the Queen of Gothic with a series of novels involving victim-like heroines lost in strange, haunted castles in nasty foreign Catholic countries, of course. and suffering at the hands of great, brooding, proto-Byronic villains. She was also a pioneer in using frame narratives, stories within stories within stories. You remember the Canterbury Tales? It's exactly the same construction. Her best three novels commanded a Europe-wide readership. These were The Romance of the Forest and best known The Mysteries of Udolpho, 1794. And there was a third one, The Sicilian. Her influence was really, really extensive, and even Edgar Allan Poe is somehow indebted to her. Finally, the genre probably attained perfection with Matthew Gregory Lewis. A lifelong outsider from a decayed sugar planting family in Jamaica, his masterpiece is The Monk, 1796. This made him so famous it got him a nickname, and he remained known as Matthew Monk Lewis. It's a fascinating tale of a depraved monk entering a nefarious compact with the devil within the walls of a Spanish convent. Still today, it's really a must-read. It's really a page-turner. It's really good. It associates religion with eroticism and horror, and this, of course, was later to be picked up by many, many writers. For instance, in French literature, Barbet d'Aurevilly, of course. Again, this goes to show how much religion was fast becoming a decorative motive, in a way, and people were looking for other spiritual thrills. Again, this is the key notion of the age of reason collapsing, Christianity being somehow rejected, and readers looking for new things, exciting things.